We're here to talk about the issues briefing. As I mentioned, my name is Scott Rogers. I'm Vice President of Governmental Affairs at the Eau Claire Area Chamber of Commerce. And I work with our colleagues at the Chippewa Falls and Menominee Chambers to do what is now our 30th annual Chippewa Valley Rally. And this year we have 21 teams, 102 in-person visits with legislators while we're there. We are recording this if you're watching it later at 11 a.m. on Friday. And we will have the recording available to you on demand later, and we'll send the link out to everyone. So since I asked you to mute your microphones and turn off your cameras, if you do have questions, please put them in the chat. And as we go along, we will try to take a look at those. So we're going to do two things today. The main item of business is to review the issues of the rally. And then at the end, we'll review the schedule, talk about expectations for your visits. We also did have a political experts panel that reported on Wednesday, the 21st. We sent that link out to everyone yesterday afternoon if you did not have a chance to join us for that. One of the things they'll have as a tool for the rally is our issues book. And I'm going to share my screen right now and show you that. If you've attended the rally before, you know this is our leave behind with each legislative office we visit. It's also a tool for you to use when you're at the rally so that you can have talking points and cover the things that we are doing at the rally. I am going to zoom in just a little bit. And one of the unique things about the rally this year is the fact that we have many, many thank yous. This is a non-budget year. We had a lot of things we asked for at last year's rally. And a major theme of this year will be a thank you to lawmakers and others in state government for what we accomplished. I did send out the link to this book with the email you got yesterday too, so I'd encourage you to take a look at it on your own and get familiar with it. And we had things almost ready to go and all the issues approved by the three chambers in the middle of January. And then, of course, we all had the announcement of the closures of HSHS and Prevea facilities in our region. And so we certainly couldn't ignore this as we go to the rally and go talk about things. So we did highlight this as one of the things that we have to at least acknowledge and touch on during the rally. So a little bit about these issues. They were all arrived at a consensus among the three chambers with a lot of input from our communities. And so as you go through your visits, as we turn the page and cover what's in the book, the schedule is here, and we do have information about the healthcare crisis and how that we're dealing with this. And I have Dave Miner with us from the Eau Claire Chamber, who's going to talk a little bit about the statement we put on here at the rally when we do talk with lawmakers about the healthcare crisis. Dave?
So again, as you can all imagine, as Scott said, you know, we had the issues identified, the book was ready to go to print, and then we got the news dropped on us 31 days ago today. And also knowing that both the Senate and the Assembly were going to be very close to leaving by the end of the month. Our consensus, the idea was we need to leave a message behind. So it's not an ask, it's not a thank, but it's a message that there are issues that the state is going to need to address when they come back in January of 2025 to what in part is responsible for getting Eau Claire and the Chippewa Valley in this situation today. So what that simply is to alert them that over the spring through the fall, we are going to be talking locally about what are some of those issues? What can the state do? What does the state need to do to make sure this does not take place anywhere else? So it's whether you want to do this with your lobby team leader, somebody in your group is passionate and you want to do it, doesn't matter. But it's again more of an information that we know there's some problems. We know they are at the control of the legislature, and we want to work with them in the coming sessions again next year to how these get addressed. So again, it's just more an FYI, it's there, we got to work with it, we got to work together. And we will come down with a plan to help them understand what we've done locally, and when I say locally, definitely within the region. And then again, what is their role? It's gonna take all of us to get through this. It's not just one. So I apologize. I have to step out for another call. If you have questions or you want more talking points or something on that, reach out to me and I'll be glad to give them to you, or Kaylin on my staff. But it's just, again, more of an FYI.
All right, and I will remind you that if you have questions as we go along, we'll try to keep an eye on the chat. And what you see here in the issues book is the statement that we agreed between the three chambers to at least identify what's going on, acknowledge that's an issue for us, and to really let legislators know that when we come back, the assembly actually ended yesterday and finished its session for the year. And we'll talk about that a little bit later when we talk about how the visits will work and what's going on with that. So you want to get familiar with this statement here. I will mention that there was some legislation passed just this week to make $15 million available that had been appropriated in the 2021 budget. And we'll give you an update on that at the rally. It's now been sent to the governor's office, and we will talk about that at a later time. So we're going to move on in our rally booklet here and give you some more information about what we'll be covering. And so as the way we've organized the rally booklet this year, it's very similar to the past. We have some major areas that we talk about in the book. And usually we have several asks when we go, especially in a budget year like last year. And I apologize for kind of moving this around as we go. So hopefully you're not getting too dizzy. But on the third page of the book, you'll see a bunch of hearts here. And as you saw from the cover of the book, it was really an unusual year in 2023 because we had several victories in the state budget, some other legislation that was passed that we think was positive. And so this rally is probably somewhat unusual in the number of items that we have where we're thanking legislators and state government for taking some important action. And what we have is critical investments in higher education. Our two significant asks that we had in the last budget were completion funding for the UW-Eau Claire Science and Health Sciences building, and also funding for UW Stouts Heritage Hall. And we do have with us today Chancellor Jim Schmidt from UW-Eau Claire. And Jim, we're going to go to you and have you tell us a little bit about how we might interact with legislators this year when we talk about the Chippewa Valley Rally.
Yeah, and first of all, for those of you who've helped secure these funds over the last several years, I want to start by giving the business community and local leaders a major thank you. We couldn't have done this on our own. This was clearly the effort of many hands and many interests in this building. So I want to start by thanking everyone who's on this call. And I appreciate in advance you taking my charge, if you will, to sincerely thank the legislators who supported this project in its many stages. I'm pleased to report that the building is out for bids as we speak. It went out earlier this week or late last week. We expect to get those bids returned. There's a lot of interest from contractors around the state to doing this. We anticipate being in the ground as early as late spring. Depending on the contractor, the building could be ready for occupancy as early as fall of 26, but certainly no later than fall of 27, because all of the plans and construction documents were done and ready to go. So we start by giving them that thanks. I think a really important piece to underline for the thanks is this is science and health sciences. Yes, we need to be front and center about preparing the workforce to be in these growing fields. The institution has added nearly 15 new STEM and healthcare related programs in the last 10 years, and there are more on the drawing book. So we are putting a significant focus there. One of the pieces that really helped us, I think, secure support for this building is the collaboration that we have with Mayo Clinic. And again, you'll see in there'll be 10,000 square feet of dedicated research space for that collaboration. What maybe hasn't been clear, and I probably should have caught it and suggested for an edit in this, but it's certainly more timely given the announcement that we had that's really ripping through the region. And that is the true focus of this partnership is really around becoming a global leader in rural healthcare innovation. It is very timely. We believe that we can address the rural healthcare shortage by addressing some of the economics. And we know that technology and AI will be a big piece of that solution. We're not ready to put a bow on that initiative, but we've been working on it. We've brought in some additional expertise from around the country to help us look at this. What's happened to the Chippewa Valley in healthcare is not going to be limited to the Chippewa Valley. We're seeing concerns, obviously, with the Marshfield merger going off, and many of these rural hospitals are no longer offering OB care to be able to deliver children in these rural districts. We believe there are some solutions here. We know technology and AI can play a role in helping to bring down costs, which in the end, we hope will help the economics and allow viability for these rural areas. So again, this is a wonderful message, but a sincere thank you. I've been told this is the largest single investment the state of Wisconsin has ever made in a building anywhere for any type in the state. And I think it says a lot about the Chippewa Valley and their confidence in us to deliver, that they were willing to step forward and make this commitment. Don't know if anyone has any questions about anything I brought up.
All right, we'll try to watch the chat if there is any questions. Looks like perhaps we don't have any, but I will bring this back up on the screen so you can see the way the book is organized as we go through it during your visits. We have a short narrative under each of the areas. And so you'll be working with your team leader to determine who's going to cover what. And we actually can't cover every word in the booklet, but when we are with legislative offices, there'll be interest that they'll have that they may ask you more questions about. But certainly we'll start out by acknowledging the current healthcare crisis, and then we'll go through the book fairly quickly and highlight a few things, but especially the thank yous this year. We'll want to talk about that and mention some of the things that the chancellor just said about the value of the science and health sciences building. So thank you, Chancellor Schmidt, and we will try to keep an eye on things for any chat questions. So as you look at this page, as I mentioned before, we had two very significant projects that were important to our communities, to workforce, to the economic health of West Central Wisconsin. And we had UW Stout Heritage Hall renovation project, which was very, very important. And we do have with us today Chancellor Catherine Frank. And Chancellor Frank, why don't you talk to us a little bit about Heritage Hall, and then also the one we're kind of teeing up for next year that's related to UW Stout.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Scott. And again, thanks to everybody, because I see a lot of familiar names on the list, those who were involved in this advocacy work in the past to help us get this project across the finish line. Chippewa Valley Rally plays a big role in that work, and we appreciate everybody's advocacy on our behalf. So the Heritage Hall project is a 139 really $1 million renovation project. And it was included in the 23-25 state budget. This renovation is on track as planned, and we will empty out this building a year from this spring semester and start the renovation process. This is a failing building that is going to be completely renovated. It houses critical programs, just as the Eau Claire Science Building, for fueling the workforce. And as we know, Stout fuels that workforce better than anybody in the state at a rate of 99.4% in terms of placement rate of our graduates within 6 months of graduation. So areas you might call out that are supported by this building that fuel our workforce include hospitality and tourism, childcare, food science and technology, education, and mental health and wellness. And there in the mental health and wellness piece is an important tie-in back to what was discussed in terms of the rural healthcare crisis and ways that this building will help to support future employees in that, and especially the mental health space. And so that's what I would emphasize in terms of heritage. Keep it brief. Focus on the fact that the building is on track as planned, and that it is essential for fueling the workforce in those areas that I just named. And then you can create a nice tie-in between the mental health and wellness and the ask from Stout. That will be part of the ask next year that we want to prime our audiences for. And that's the UW Stout Recreation Complex renovation. And again, coming off of that mental health and wellness piece, this is our #1 capital project going forward. This building was constructed in 1965, and as you might imagine, it is deteriorating in terms of its usability. And it has a lack of space to accommodate our growing number of student athletes, as well as our students, our general student population, and the larger community. So just some highlights of this project. It will include an improved entrance and new welcome space to the building. We have a decommissioned pool at the center of the building, and that will be turned into a multi-use gymnasium. There will be additional fitness space, including strength training, cardio, and fitness studios. There will be a relocation of the athletic weight room to the current fitness center, and this conversion of space opens up the area to better accommodate both our student athletes and our larger student population. It will also include more multi-use studios and instructional spaces. There's a very important update to locker rooms that address shower quality and lack of privacy. It increases accessibility options and again, provides some shared space for sporting events. Also important to this project is we're eliminating the fitness center student membership fees. The facility operations will be sustained entirely on segregated fees, and this is an important part of this project. So please, if you emphasize anything, please emphasize what is next. We will be seeking bonding authority as part of the 25-27 budget to renovate and expand this facility. It's a $30.5 million project, and it will be funded entirely by donor support and student-approved fees. There are no taxpayer dollars going towards this building. This is simply the bonding authority to move forward with this $30.5 million project. So it's a really important point to emphasize. We have lots of people from UW Stout who will be part of the rally and spread across teams. Those individuals include some experts from our athletics area, as well as students who have been directly involved in this project. And it was students who brought this project forward. So this is a priority for UW Stout students. Again, no taxpayer dollars. And we have quite a bit of donor funds committed to this project as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but you'll have a lot of experts among you on your teams. And just thank you again for your support and help with advocacy on these projects.
Right. Thank you, Chancellor Frank. And I think we're watching the chat. I don't think we have any questions right now, but some good news. And as we showed you, I'm going to share my screen once more. Among the last lines here for kind of thinking farther ahead, when we do look at the state budget and look at bonding and so forth, we have kind of for the entire region and for UW schools in general have suggested that the state really consider things that are not taxpayer funded separately. And we have that as a statement here as well. So thanks so much, Chancellor Frank. Important things that we can say thank you for. And we actually have one more in this overall category of higher education. And it's one that arose at the end of the budget session last year. So for those of you who perhaps have not been part of this process or pay super close attention to how state government works, we have a 2-year cycle in state government after each election. So in the fall of an even numbered year, we elect people to the legislature. And then in the odd numbered years right after that election, we have a 2-year state budget. And that's where things like these projects come up. This year, we are the year after the budget, and we are sort of wrapping things up, building relationships and looking ahead to the next budget. One of the things that came up at the end of the budget process in 2023, as it was being finished in June, there was a proposal that arose out of the Assembly to replace the tax levy authority that technical colleges have with state funding. And a lot of concern was raised about that because the history of state funding is that sometimes the legislature in a tough year will start cutting state funding, whereas giving technical colleges authority locally to be able to have a levy, but which they must be able to defend with local taxpayers, is a way to keep that closer to communities, to local control. And the Clare Chamber was one of those that contacted legislators and said, we really don't like this and think it would be a bad idea. And ultimately, the state legislature decided not to go forward with that. So we actually have a thank you for not doing something here. And really thank you to our technical college system, which works in a complementary way with our UW system to really meet the workforce needs of our communities. And so that is a thank you here, and it may come up during your visits and something you can talk about. And what we're doing with today's session is we're covering those issues to get you familiar with them, and then we'll talk a little bit more about what these visits are like. I will mention at this point too that because you are going to be there representing the Chippewa Valley and representing these issues that we have all agreed are consensus issues. If you have anything else you want to talk with legislators about or have different thoughts on any of these things, make sure you do that in a separate meeting or a separate opportunity with legislators and not during our official visits. So another major accomplishment last year was the dedication of 20% of state tax revenues to local governments and repeal of the personal property tax. So we encourage you to talk about that. That was a major accomplishment of the rally last year. And then, of course, there are some things that we continue as businesses and economic people in the area to look at things like how our tax system attracts talent. We also have a thank you in here to our sponsors. We'll acknowledging them right now for helping make this possible and helping keep our registration fees low. I'm going to go through the rest of the issues here. There's a question in the chat that is a little bit more specific, so we'll try to follow up with Mike on that later and do what we can to answer that. So we're going to continue through the issues here, and then we'll give some updates on how the teams work. So when we get to workforce development, this is one of the things that wasn't directly in the budget, although the budget made the money available for it. There was legislation that was passed that created 4 programs for affordable housing in the state that Wisconsin Housing and Economic Development Authority is in the process of rolling out. And there was another one that helped ensure that communities go forward with their comprehensive plans and actually approve projects that are part of it. One of the major issues that has been for many of the professions has been some backlogs in the Department of Safety and Professional Services. This is sort of both a thank you and continued progress needed. There were some steps taken there to reduce the backlog, but we get the indication from many of those in those professions that there still needs to be some more activity there and some more work to get rid of those backlogs and get those things through the process a little bit faster. One of the items that is still an action requested and in many ways is an unresolved issue is that many of us in our communities know there's been a crisis with childcare, with being able to have that available to working parents and to businesses to make people who want to work available but who have childcare issues. Although there have been a lot of progress on a lot of things and a lot of compromises, this is an area where the various parties have not really gotten together. And so it won't be solved in this issue, in this session of the legislature. So we want to continue to encourage them to do that. We do know that there is a child care tax credit bill on the governor's desk. And we will know perhaps by the time of the rally whether that gets signed. And we continue to encourage the state to take action on talent attraction and retention.
Replacement bill for that other money that's going on.
So I actually have a live question here, and I will mention that we have a few people. We had another meeting just before this, and a few of our work for our rally attendees were able to stay. So Mike Golat from the city of Altoona is here, and he actually has a question. So go ahead and ask.
The question is that a replacement bill for that other, and excuse my ignorance, but the other funding that helped childcare providers in the past that sunsetting?
I'll give my view of what I think is happening with this, and hopefully it'll be accurate, and we'll talk about it at the rally if it's different. So we do know a couple things that were going on here. The governor proposed to continue the Child Care Counts program with state funding. It had been federally funded before, and a number of the Republicans have come up with bills that they have been promoting that deal with some of the business model issues with childcare. Those two really have not gotten resolved. What the governor did do was transfer $170 million of other federal funding to continue that program. And this tax credit is really a separate thing that was added. And I believe the governor has indicated he's probably going to sign that. And there are some other tax cuts that were passed by the legislature that are in the governor's desk, and those have a more uncertain future. So, all right, so we will continue through here. A couple things on infrastructure. Our ask on some of the infrastructure last year was not directly in the legislature, but our region has for many years advocated for the establishment of passenger rail service to our area, as well as to other cities in the state that don't have it. Our ask last year was for the Wisconsin DOT to submit and support applications to the Federal Railroad Administration, part of the US DOT, to take advantage of the bipartisan infrastructure law. Those applications were submitted in March, and we learned in December that all of the corridors affecting Wisconsin, including the 4 that DOT submitted, one of which would have service through the Chippewa Valley, and also the one DOT supported that was submitted by a local commission, the Chippewa St. Croix Rail Commission, which are the communities and counties between Eau Claire and the Minnesota border. Those were all approved by FRA. So this is a thank you. They don't require any state funding at this point. So they were a thank you for Wisconsin DOT for moving forward with those applications. Also, thank you for broadband. The state is taking advantage of some significant federal funding to move forward with bringing broadband to more communities. We do have 2 action requests here, and one of which may have been completed by the time we meet next week. And that is reaching a compromise on how electrical vehicle charging network could be created and how it could be done by businesses that aren't utilities, which is what the law required. And we needed to change the laws in the state to access some federal funding in that area. There is actually a pending bill right now that was passed overwhelmingly in both the Senate and the Assembly. The Assembly yesterday passed the bill with an amendment that will now go back to the Senate. And the Senate is planning to meet again. But that has broad bipartisan support. So it's very, very likely that that will become law. It may still be in progress while we're at the rally next week because the Senate has not yet acted on the Assembly's changes. And then we have one other one other issue that has come up that was suggested by the Chippewa Falls Chamber. And that is we do continue, of course, to encourage the state and other local governments to take advantage of the funding of the bipartisan infrastructure law. One of the things that came up from the Chippewa Falls Chamber was that state departments are increasingly requiring local governments to have complete plans before they even apply for funding for infrastructure projects. And in some cases, that is a very expensive thing without them knowing whether they are even going to likely win those projects. And so it was brought up as something to bring to the attention, particularly of the state government, as to what can be done in that area to help with local governments in that regard. So those are the issues. It sounds like a lot. One of the things that's going to happen is we're going to have 15-minute visits, and it took us more than 15 minutes to cover those. And so I'm going to take a look at the chat right now and see what we can answer in terms of questions. So yes, Jennifer Schilling pointed out that the EV bill did pass the Assembly yesterday. It did have did have an amendment that's going to require it to go back to the Senate, but it also passed the Assembly something like 95-2, or very strong. So I don't know that there'll be a problem with that in the Senate, but until the Senate meets, we won't know the outcome of that one.
Do you know if it included municipalities?
I'd have to look at it. It has some restrictions on municipalities, and that was part of the compromise. So they want it to be private businesses that have the authority to do that. Okay, so I know Laura Lash is involved in child care accounts, and is pointing out that in many ways it is not continuing.
Yeah.
And so we'll take a look at this and get that to you. But basically our message with the legislature being basically out is that we are asking state government to figure this out and to come together on a compromise. And we'll have to do what they can do at this point. So, all right. And I welcome any other questions that come in. Mike, go ahead.
Just, do we want to say thank you for the 15 million? Make that a point?
So you're going back to the 15 million for the HSHS Prevea response. I think we can talk about that, and it is a positive. We are kind of waiting to hear more from the governor's office.
Sure.
The primary message of the rally is that there are things that state government can do, and that we have the long-term issue to be thinking about. And probably can thank for the 15 million. I think what we'll give you everybody some guidance when we get underway at the rally as far as kind of where we are with that, and where, if we have any indication from the governor's office as to his planning to sign those things. So,
Scott, is relative to the healthcare piece, I was just thinking it might be important too that everyone is aware, has thoughts around that impact that it has on our healthcare workforce pipeline, specifically about clinical placements and things like that. Some of the challenges that CBTC for sure, UW Eau Claire as well, are facing with our healthcare future professionals.
right, and this gets us into, you know, one of the things we can do is we're really teeing up that as an issue that we know will be next year, and there'll be a lot of work between now and the budget cycle next year, and whether there could even be some action before that. Usually, to tell you the truth, in an election year, they're usually in a pretty big hurry to get out, and they will not meet again until January of next year. And so it can be an opportunity for some feedback too, as these issues come up and as we bring this in front of legislators. So one of the things that we do that's unique about the Chippewa Valley Rally is we are going to Madison. We are the Chippewa Valley, and certainly we interact with our own legislative delegation quite a bit, but we schedule as many meetings as people will meet with us. So we actually have 102 meetings scheduled out of the 131 current legislators. Now, if you say, well, what, isn't it 132? There's actually a vacancy. So if anybody wants to try to catch me on that.
Just saying.
Yes.
Well, anybody that would try to talk to
Yeah,
me.
you're right. Usually there are people very detail oriented. So So the other ones we don't have an opportunity to meet, but we are meeting with many offices who don't represent the Chippewa Valley, and we've been doing that for 30 years. But one of the things we point out is that we are not the bulk of the population of the state. We have a very vibrant, important economic area, but the eastern side of the state, southern part of the state is where the bulk of the population is. And so it gives us an opportunity to sort of wave a flag and say, here's what's important to the economy of the Chippewa Valley. And I think it's highly recognized that we have a lot of good things going on here. And even things like our university projects benefit the whole state because we have students from all over the state. And it strengthens our state's economy. But it also, the word, I don't know if it came up today, but I hear it over and over again, and that is the healthcare crisis here is a canary in the coal mine because it's going to happen other places. And so maybe, and this is Joni Giroux from CBTC who was asking that question, who was at our meeting beforehand, we had before this. So it's a chance to bring this in front of other people and to hear what they have to say as far as potential things, and we'll ask for that kind of feedback when your teams come back. So any other questions about the issues themselves? And again, you can also email me and we'll try to answer any final questions at the rally itself. A couple things I will mention then, sort of to give you some advance knowledge of what's going to be happening and to be ready. One thing that is always fun about the rally, several years ago, the idea came up and my phone's ringing, so I won't be able to answer that. It's probably a question on the rally, right? You will all get a scarf that looks like this. And if you've seen pictures of the rally, if you look at the front of the booklet, there's the picture we take in the rotunda every year. People will see us around the Capitol, and it helps to identify us while we're there. And I understand a lot of other entities have sort of copied that as well. The dress code is business professional. So we do encourage you to wear a suit and tie or whatever is relevant, similar to that. If you're in terms of a business setting, please dress that way. As I mentioned, we have 21 teams, 102 in-person visits. And so the way the schedule will work, first of all, as far as getting there and finding the location, you would have received an email from me yesterday, and we'll send you a reminder early next week about what we have planned for transportation. So we do have a full bus at this point for those who are riding the bus. It'll leave from, thank you to CBTC for hosting the departure point, be leaving from the health center at CBTC on the south side of Claremont Avenue. So make sure you go to the right parking lot. That'll be leaving at 6:15 in the morning. So be sure that to be there on time. We will be at the Park Hotel in downtown Madison across the street from the Capitol. So those of you getting there on your own, we should certainly encourage you to target arrival by 9:30. So you have plenty of time to get parked and or even come in the night before and get up to the 8th floor, which is where the Chippewa Valley Rally headquarters will be. So I will run through for you very quickly, and we'll be sending this out next week, but 10 o'clock a.m. we'll be starting. We will have a panel of our local legislators with us. So we'll be able to interact with them about issues, about their suggestions in terms of working with their colleagues. And then as we wrap that up, you'll meet with your team. All the team leaders who are going have been to the rally before. Many of them have been team leaders before, and they will kind of be the person in your group that will lead you to the offices throughout the Capitol, help keep the conversation started, keep it going, and also to introduce the people with your group as you go, or decide how you want to do your visits. They tend to be pretty informal. So what's going to happen is after that initial session, we'll go walk across the street to the Capitol. We'll meet in the rotunda, take a picture. And then you will have 2 legislative appointments in the morning, one at 11:15 and one at 11:45. During those visits, you'll give the booklet to the legislator and or their staff member, whoever you're meeting with. And we do point out that it is still valuable to meet with a staff member, sometimes even with people from other parts of the state. It may be more valuable to meet with a staff member because they're dealing with the specific issues. Come back to the Park Hotel at 12:30 for lunch. And then we have 3 appointments for you at 1:45, 2:15, and 2:45. At 3:45, we'll have a wrap-up session, and then we close the day from 4:36 with a reception. For those of you riding the bus will leave at 6:15 to head home. So that's quickly what the overall schedule of the rally is. So I'd encourage you to get familiar with the issues. Look at the issues that you think you're most interested in or think you have the most knowledge about. And pick out a couple of them that you would like to talk about, because that's what your group will do. You'll decide, okay, Joni, for your group, I'm going to talk about higher education perhaps. And you may have a student with you who will talk about another aspect, somebody talk about childcare, somebody talk about infrastructure, et cetera. So have somebody ready to talk about the HSHS Prevea issue as well. So that's really kind of the overview of what happens at the rally. I will also say that I've been at the Eau Claire Chamber for 10 years now, but I attended over 10 rallies before that. So I've been to a lot of them, but it doesn't need to be intimidating if you've never done it before. One of the things we find with legislators and their staff is that they're used to having lobbyists come in who are paid to do this, and they appreciate the everyday citizens who are coming in. Many of them are public officials. We have a number of students from both Stout and UW-Eau Claire and other places who are attending this year, and they really appreciate interacting with those folks. So I will take a look at the chat one more time. I don't see any other questions in the chat. Anybody else in the room have any comments or questions? So, well, very good. We appreciate everyone taking the time to do this. This has been an important thing for our community to do this for 30 years. And we can look around us and see things in our community that in past years have been an important part of the Chippewa Valley Rally, and we've been able to take advantage of those in our community. So thank you again for taking the time to join us today or to watch this later. And I will commend to you the recording. If you weren't there in person, we had Bill McCoshen and Sean Paff talking about the political climate in Madison. And if you haven't heard, there will be new districts coming this fall. And we addressed that there as well. And so if you want some insights into what the atmosphere will be like politically, and they also have some advice on how to be most effective with legislators and public officials when you're in Madison as well. So, all right, thank you everybody for your time. We look forward to seeing you on Wednesday at the Chippewa Valley Rally. Have a great weekend. You have a little bit of homework, but hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you then. Thanks.